different perspective on what we do as realtors. But today, they asked me to talk to you guys about writing and receiving offers. So we're going to look at offers both from the perspective of whether or not you are the listing agent or the buyer's agent, obviously with the goal in mind of getting those offers accepted. So after each section, I will ask you if you have any ahas, things that you hadn't thought about that kind of stuck with you, and also if you have any questions. So this is today's agenda. We're going to look at the offer process, how to prepare an offer, how to write the offer, how to present it. If you're the listing agent, receiving and responding to it. And then we will look at, as agents, what we should do every single day to be successful in this business. So this is one of the quotes that actually they said, I like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade, not manipulate a person or persons into a win-win situation. And this is something that we have to really think about when we work with other agents in offers. It's not, one agent against another to see who wins. You guys are working together to help your individual clients to get something that they want, whether it's to sell their house for the terms that they want, or to buy a property for terms that they're happy with. So you guys really need to think about the fact that you're working together. And I always tell my agents, when you are talking to other agents, think about the fact that you might be giving them the words and the arguments that they need to take back to their own clients to get them to come to the table and meet your client where they want to be. So remember, everything is win-win, or it doesn't really work. So number one, the offer process. When a buyer makes an offer, a seller can respond in one of three ways. They can counter the offer, they can accept the offer, or they can reject the offer. If they accept the offer right off the bat, then you begin your contract to close process. Super easy. Doesn't always happen that way unless you have multiple offers, everybody gave their highest and best, and then you just accept one offer. But usually there is some kind of negotiation. So that means that your client, the seller, is countering the offer. Maybe they're countering the price, maybe they're countering some of the terms, the inspections, appraisal gap, when it closes, sometimes even which title company you use, but any change is basically you're countering the offer. And that means that you, as a seller, kick the offer back to the buyer and say, hey, I like this, but I don't like these. Would you consider these? And so the buyer gets to say, yes, I will, or no, what about this? And that's called negotiations. The other thing that your seller can do is just reject the offer, flat out say, no, thank you. I'm not interested in this. And that's that. I highly recommend that if your offer is rejected, that as the buyer's agent, you contact the listing agent to learn more. Find out why they rejected your offer. Did they have another offer? Was it something in the terms? The more you know about why your client's offer was rejected, you can go back to your client and be like, hey, they're not interested. They don't want to do this, but they would consider this. Would this work for you? So do not assume that just because they said no to your offer, that means you cannot get to a yes at some point. So any ahas with that, or questions about the offer process? So we can't move on until somebody says something. Anybody want to share?
I'll chime in for this one. I think that this is there's so basic, right? And we might think that like, hey, this is understanding the offer process is something that you pick up right away. But the opportunity to educate your clients with this information and make sure that they understand. And Sophie, I know you and I have talked about this before. If they reject an offer out of hand, oh, I don't like this and I don't want it, that terminates the offer. There is no coming back to it, right? Now, certainly you can reach back out to the agent, and they also need to understand that a counter offer is a two-step process. It is a rejection of the offer, but then they're putting forward a new one. So it also eliminates or terminates the original offer, because sometimes your client may not like that offer on a Friday, but love it on next Tuesday. And so when they respond and direct you to respond, they need to be aware of what potential consequences lie ahead, should things not work out the way that they want them to.
And that's true. When you counter an offer, basically you're getting an offer in writing, it's got the buyer's signature on it, and your client says, yes, I'll accept this offer, but I want $5,000 more. So we're going to cross out the price of $100,000. We're going to put $105,000. I'm signing everything. I'm initialing it, and I'm sending it back to the buyer. You are not under contract. You have, like Mike said, rejected their initial offer, and now you're the one making the offer, and they can accept, reject, or counter. But you are not under contract. And that is something that you need to tell your clients, especially the sellers, when they negotiate. Sometimes for little things, they get in this mode of like, but I just want a little extra. And sometimes that costs them their deal. And so really getting them to understand, is that really worth potentially having the buyer walk away? Or do you just want to sign and we're under contract? So really, like Mike said, educating your clients as to what that counter offer really means before they make a decision. Obviously, it's their decision. If they want to counter, you counter for them, but making sure that they understand that they're not, just because they sign that document does not mean that you're under contract. You're not under contract until the buyer initials those changes. Any questions about that? Okay, so how do we prepare an offer to be accepted? And this is like the most important part. Like, do not skip anything. Really be prepared in writing a strong and clean offer. First thing that I always do is I check the MLS. I make sure that the property is still available. I review the history. Have they had price reductions? Was it previously under contract? How many times? When did it fall out of contract? Did it fall out of contract in 2 days? Did it fall out of contract after 7 days? That usually means that there was an inspection. Was it, after like 20 days? That's usually the appraisal. If it was under contract for 60 days and then it fell out, usually it's the financing that fell through. But I look at that. And I download all the supplements. I look through them before I send them to my clients and really get myself well versed in the history of this property's listing. I want to know as much about it as possible. Then I call the listing agent. I don't text them. I call them. If they don't pick up the phone, I send them a text. I said, hey, I just left you a voicemail. This is Sophie with Keller Williams. I have a client interested in your listing on blah, blah, blah. And I have a few questions. Please give me a call. Boom. I guarantee you that's like the fastest way a realtor will ever call you back. And then I find out as much as I can. I ask them if they have any offers and if they're expecting any. And then I ask them what, in addition to the price, is important to your seller. Especially in multiple offer situations, you're going to find out things like, hey, their house isn't going to be ready until this date. They can go somewhere right now. They can move in with their parents, but they would prefer to stay until this date. little things like that. Or, they bought this house with this title company 2 years ago. So if they were to sell it now, they would not have to pay quite as much if we use the same title company. Think little things like that, but always ask what is important to the seller. If you found out that it was previously under contract, find out what happened to the deal, find out if an inspection was done, and if you can get a copy of that inspection report. And, just talk, chit chat with them. And before you get off the phone, just be like, oh, by the way, can you tell me where those other offers are coming in? I know it sounds like a stupid question to ask because they're not supposed to tell you. You have no idea how many times they tell you. So one day, actually, Tamara, who's on this right now, and I were sitting and we were writing an offer on a property, and they had multiple offers. And that's exactly what we did. At the end, it was a bank-owned property. No, it wasn't actually a bank. This one was not. And we asked, where are the other offers coming in? And the guy said, they're coming in at 65. Told us we were going to write an offer at like 80. So, our offer came in at 70 and we got the offer at 70. So always ask the question. Most of the time they'll tell you, I can't tell you that, and be like, I know, but I had to ask. And that's it. But sometimes they will tell you, or sometimes they will tell you things like, are you getting any other offers? Yes, but they're only wholesalers. So I hear that. I know that they're coming in at 50% or below of asking price. So I just need to come in at maybe 40% below asking price and I get the deal. So always find out, talk to them, and you have no idea how much information you will find out from the listing agent. So once you have all of that, you got all the information from the MLS, you spoke to a listing agent, call your buyer. Make sure that they've received all the supplements, that you have discussed anything on them that you found that was relevant. If you have the inspection from a previous inspection, make sure that you discuss it with them to say, hey, these are some of the issues I found on there. You can always call the inspector because usually their phone number is right on the inspection report. Make sure that you have looked at all the comps in the area. I always look at half a mile, 180 days, and the same number of bedrooms and full baths. You should know what the highest sale was. Obviously, you should already have their proof of funds and pre-approval, and then discuss with your client an offer strategy based on all of the information that you found, especially what you learned from the listing agent. Once you have talked this through, that your client really understands what the offers are, if they're doing an escalation clause, what that means, give them examples. When you say, look, we're going to do an escalation clause, we're going to increase $1,000 up to this amount, tell them, okay, so you're starting at 200, you're willing to go up to 222. If the other offer comes in at 211, you will pay 212. Like, give them examples because I find it very interesting how often they don't really understand what they're agreeing to. So make sure that they understand. And once all of that is set, then you get all the information from the MLS, the auditor sites, like the parcel number. You want to have the MLS ID number. You want to have the listing agent's full name, their brokerage information, their license number, the name of the seller. You can get that on the county auditor site, and also what commission the listing agent is offering based on the MLS. That can be negotiable, by the way. Not in the case of a multiple offer, you do not negotiate. But if there's nothing else, this property's been sitting there, call that listing agent up and be like, hey, I know you're offering, a flat fee of $800, but that turns out to be 1.5%. And that's way below what my brokerage will accept. Would you consider doing, even split with me, and I'll bring you a buyer? Sometimes they say no. Oftentimes they will say yes. Okay, so aha's about writing offers. I know you have some. Come on. I can just call on you.
One thing I do. Oh,
Who's this? Yes, go ahead.
sorry. I don't know if you mentioned. I'll put an escalation clause in it. Not an escalation clause, but an expiration deadline. So,
Yes. So, yeah, do you want to share about like how that works and why it's effective and when it might not be effective?
okay, so like if we have the only offer, if you ask the questions, of any other offers, and if it's the only offer, and I'll ask, on the offer, I'll ask, well, when I submit the offer over to you, when do you plan to present it to the seller? So they'll say, oh, immediately. So I'll write the offer, my buyer signs, say if it's 3 o'clock, and then I'll say offer expires August 8th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Something like that. And it create some urgency to them to get responding. Sometimes they'll adhere to it. Others, sometimes they won't. I would not do it if there are multiple offers.
Mm-hmm.
And also if they counter, that's what I learned too. If they counter, also give your counter, or you accept or your client's counter with an expiration deadline too, because they'll delay it and say, they'll hold and install, and it's like, I need a response. So always do an expiration deadline, time deadline, if you can, and give me no other offers.
So typically, how much time do you give them? Do you give them like a 6-hour window, 12 hours, 24, 48?
No, in that example, I just gave them 2 hours. Because think about it. What do they have to negotiate? You got the price, you got chattel, you got the closing date, you got title company, closing costs. Look at it, get back to me. I would not give them 6 hours. I don't give 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just give them a couple hours. Especially if they're saying they're going to present it to the seller right away.
Mm-hmm.
Get back to me. I don't want you shopping my offer.
Right. So basically, when I'm initially calling the listing agent is when you have that conversation with them of how long until you can present the offer to them.
Yep. Right
So
then. They tell me immediately. If they tell me, oh, well, they get off work at 5 o'clock, I'll present it to them at 5:30. Okay, expiration time 7:30.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Do you get a lot of pushback?
No. Well, sometimes they may say, well, they're elderly, or they can't. When I find out when they're going to present it, no, I don't get pushback on that. Sometimes you'll get an agent that just won't adhere to the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is a chance when they're not going to abide by the deadline, they'll usually say, well, I can't respond by a certain deadline. If they'll say that if I was not able to get them on the phone first, if I just had to send it over with a deadline,
Mm-hmm.
they'll call back and say, I can't respond by the deadline. We'll need some more time. Okay. But it does kind of work. It does work. My coach taught me about the expiration deadline. She said it does work if you're the only offer, and depend on the agent. You can create a pace of getting deals under contract quicker, opposed to them just lingering out there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean to share too much. I mean, take over.
No. I think that was really valuable, and I appreciate you, jumping in and sharing, because I have thought about that, like, putting in deadlines, but I've actually never done it. It's never really come up, so I do appreciate that. But I did hear somebody else was going to jump in. I'm not quite sure who that was.
I'm working on an offer right now, and I have lots of questions about it, but I don't know. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask them now or what.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm putting in an offer for a house on Chagrin River Road, and it's going to be a secondary offer. It is under contract, but I talked with the agent and she said it would be a good idea to put the secondary offer in. The offer that they have under contract is not cash and ours is full price cash. And so essentially I'm just working on the offer, and my problem is always like, since I'm a new agent, I don't do the paperwork very often. And then when I start to try to do it, I become overwhelmed because there's just like a bunch of little things on there that I need to fill out that I don't know what to put.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a couple of things. When I was a new agent, I would call the listing agent, and part of what I would tell them is, I am a new agent. I have not submitted a lot of these offers. So if I make an error, I apologize. I will fix it quickly. But there are a lot of details. You're correct about that. There are a lot of details. And I don't know if you do productivity coaching. Eric is fantastic about all the different parts and all the things you need to think about. Like, he's got this magic 6 list. So if you have not participated in his coaching on Wednesdays, I would highly recommend it. But to get back to your secondary offer, and I'm not saying that you should not submit the secondary offer, but I'm going to give you the flip side of that. If I'm the listing agent and I have a property under contract, and I would accept a secondary offer, that means there's still a contingency period, correct? Likely. And so I know that I need to still get through the inspection with a primary offer and the appraisal with the primary offer. So the offer in hand, and the one that you're, kind of trying to process through all the different steps, is typically, better than one that you'd have to start from scratch. So what I would do if I were the listing agent and I had a secondary offer that I knew was cash, and the primary offer came back after inspections and asked me for my client for concessions, I would personally use your offer to negotiate the primary offer and to get them to not ask for any concessions after the inspection.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily want to, unless your offer was better, in the sense not just that it's cash, but that maybe you're offering $20,000 more. Then
I think we are.
Okay, then I might try to just blow up the first deal and not have a secondary offer. I might do that.
Yeah.
But so it really, sometimes it can backfire to have to be in the secondary position because you're giving leverage to the listing agent to use against the primary offer. So just something to think about.
Well, what would be the alternative? Just because my client really wants this house, and so he wants to do whatever he can do to get it. So that's the only thing we really know to do is put in the secondary offer.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that if your client really wants the house, I would tell them just make it as good as possible beyond the cash to really, like I say, kind of tempt them to let that first deal blow up.
Okay.
Like, give them an incentive to not negotiate with the first offer and to go with you.
Okay. And they're going to do 10,000 in escrow.
10,000.
I guess I don't know, like
money or escrow.
I'm sorry. Yes, earnest money. I'm such a newbie. Yes, earnest money. 10,000 earnest money. So I don't know, like, if there's a couple options you can pick. It says cash down payment to be deposited with escrow agent via wire transfer. I guess I don't know, what are they asking there?
Yeah, so basically, if your client is not going to pay that escrow, that earnest money right now, but let's say you get under contract as a secondary offer, and you get a call in 2 weeks that the primary offer blew up and that your offer is now the primary offer. And so let's say in 2 weeks, I'm just going to pick the date, it's August 17th. And on August 17th, you become the primary offer. Your client has 4 days from there to pay the earnest money.
So how would I convey that on the contract?
So you wouldn't, you would check the box that it's a secondary offer.
Well, I did, but it's asking me to choose like one of those options. You know, you have to choose.
Yeah,
Check to,
it's to the escrow agent, yes. But let me
And
give
then
you
you-
my phone number, and then, because I don't want to hold everybody up, but my phone number is 216,
okay, sorry.
that's okay, 849.
Okay.
8032. And when we're done with Ignite, why don't you give me a call?
Okay, you
And-
said 849-8032.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anybody else have questions, ahas?
I had a quick thing that I think maybe might be on the mind of some new agents or even some like agents who are starting to gain experience. Can you click back to the last slide?
Yeah.
So for you, and you know, since you talked about when you were a new agent, you know, this process probably took you you know, a half a day or the first time that you ran it, right? But this is something that you do every time. I mean, you've written probably at this point well over 500 contracts, and this is your system for contracts.
It is. And I don't skip it. I know sometimes we don't feel like calling. I just want to get the offer done. I always call the listing agent. Yeah. Because it puts you in such a much stronger position if you do that. And like I say, you gain a lot of leverage when you gain information. And it's not just to get your offer accepted, but once you're negotiating to keep the deal together, the information that you get from the listing agent can be really invaluable as your clients decide they want something. If you know the motivation of the other side, what they're willing to do, what they can do. I often call the lender from the listing agent and I'll ask, you know, I just got this offer, I've got the pre-approval that you wrote. I just want to know how solid are they? Do they need for example, if it's a seller concessions towards closing costs, I will ask them, do they need that? Is that like a deal breaker? And, you know, and sometimes I'll say yes, sometimes I'll say no, sometimes I'll say, yeah, they need a minimum of this. That's like, it's not going to happen unless it's that. And I can say that to my client. They don't just want it, they need this, or they only need half of it. So it's really important to know. And it can be after inspections. For example, they want concessions and you're like, okay, well, we gave you $6,000 towards closing costs. You really only need $3,000. So why don't we reduce that to $3,000, but we do all of these things that you want? Yeah. You know, so you need that information. But yes, I definitely go through the system every single time.
Yeah, and I think that's just such an important reminder, because sometimes we feel like we're under the gun. We feel like, oh, you know, I mean, and the market's slowing down, but it is by no means slow. There's still urgency. There's still multiple offers. And if you have this, you know, something like this takes you from an agent who's just pushing paper around to one who's setting deals up to be put under contract and close.
And that's the thing, right? Do you want to write offers or do you want to get your offers accepted?
Bingo.
If you want to write offers, you don't need to do any of this. Just write them all day long. If you want them accepted, have a system and just stick to it.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So writing the offer. Again, I actually created a terms of offer sheet. I don't know why I didn't include it. I should have. But once I have had the conversation with my clients about, you know, about our strategy, I send them a sheet that has a lot of these things on there and they fill it out. I work a lot with investors, so I do include things like, you know, the entity that is purchasing it, who is legally allowed to sign for this entity. But there are things that we use also for private buyers, and they will just write down like the price. If there's an escalation clause, what's their starting price, what their maximum price is. We look at concessions. Are we going to offer to pay any of the seller's closing costs? Are we asking the seller to pay any of my buyer's closing costs? What kind of financing are we doing? What items need to convey with the property? How much earnest money are we going to put down? It's typically 1% with a minimum of $1,000. But here, again, be strategic. Sometimes, especially when you're in a multiple offer situation, a higher earnest money amount communicates to the seller and the seller's agent that your client is serious. But this money is going to go towards their down payment anyway. So it's not like extra money. They're just paying it sooner. And instead of saying, securing this property with $1,000, you're saying, I'm securing this property with $10,000. Of course, you need to make sure that your buyers are serious, because if they flake out, they're losing that $10,000. So they need to understand that, and you need to be clear with them. Again, that goes back to understanding your clients. You don't want to be writing offers when they're not 100% sure they want the house. So the other thing are inspections. What type of inspections are we doing? Why are we doing them? Oftentimes people are saying inspections are for informational purposes only. I don't like that. I always tell my clients, I don't like that unless it's a complete gut job and they know that they're going to have to replace absolutely everything. I think that saying that inspections are for informational purposes only is a bad idea, because you don't know what the inspector might find. So you can do something like inspection is for informational purposes only unless something significant is found. Obviously, something significant is up to interpretation, but at least that gives your clients an out. You can also put repair limits, like inspection is for informational purposes only unless something significant is found. A buyer to assume all repairs up to the first $5,000. Anything above $5,000 is negotiable. That is also something that you can do in the event of multiple offers. Pay attention to deadlines when you're writing. Sometimes we just automatically say inspection period will be 7 days plus 3 days for anything that any additional inspections that the inspector recommends. But especially when the inspectors are super busy, sometimes it's hard to get them in for 7 days. You'll have some agents that write 14 days, and then that kind of kills their offer because nobody wants to wait 14 days. So just kind of pay attention to those deadlines. Again, knowing what's important to the seller is going to help you, and what is important to your buyer is going to help you determine where you put those numbers. The other inspections that you need to think about are point of sale. Not every single municipality has point of sale inspections, but a lot of them do, and you need to know which one. So Google it if you're writing an offer and understand what that means. And put it in there. I get so many offers in the Heights where the buyer doesn't say anything about the property being delivered point of sale compliant. I've submitted the point of sale inspection report, it's in the supplements, and they say nothing. They're just assuming that we are delivering it point of sale compliant, where that has not been stated or agreed to. So the options for point of sale is, if you're representing the buyer, seller to deliver property point of sale compliant, buyer assumes violations, but not the escrow requirement. So cities will often require that somebody put money in escrow with the city. The city will hold that money until all the repairs are done, and then they will release the money. So who's putting that money in escrow? Is a buyer putting the money in escrow, or is the seller putting money in escrow? Shaker requires 150%. So if the repairs are $10,000, you're going to require $15,000 to be put in escrow. The seller is not going to want to put $15,000 for a $10,000 job and then the buyer gets the $15,000 back. So understanding all those nuances. The third one is the buyer assumes the violations and the escrow requirement. Again, understand point of sale, understand what your buyer is willing to do, what the seller might be offering. Offer deadlines, Art just talked about that, have an expiration date. And then talk about also possession date and closing date. They're not necessarily the same thing. Closing date, like I have a deal right now, it's my stepson. They're closing on August 31st, but the sellers are staying in the property until September 30th. And I said, be careful. And the reason you have to be careful is that once your buyers close on a property and the seller stays, the seller becomes the tenant, even if they do not have a lease, even if they do not pay rent, they become the tenant. And if on October 1st, the sellers are not out of that house, my stepson will have to evict them. You have to go through the eviction process. And so you need to make sure that if your client agrees to having the seller stay in the property after closing, that they understand that risk and that it could take 3 months, sometimes 4 months to get the people out. And during that time, the buyer is going to have to pay their mortgage, property taxes, insurance, likely the water and sewer because they stay with the property. So make sure that the buyer understands that risk. Other terms, home warranty, who pays? Is the buyer paying for it, the seller paying for it? And then any type of addenda that you might be attaching. Sometimes there's several of them. We, again, work a lot with investors. We have a rental property addendum, and make sure that you have all of that ready and addressed when you write the offer. Jenna, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, I just wanted to make sure there does not have to be a home warranty, right? And I wanted to also ask, like, do you recommend one, or what do we say about that?
So it's up to them. I think they say that, I forget like what percentage is very high of the homes have a major system failure in like the first 2 months or something like that. And the reason I have been told by inspectors is that, let's say I've been living in my house for 10 years. I use it a certain way, right? I don't use the AC very much. I don't like it when it's cold. And, we have a certain amount of people. We do the same amount of wash every single week, and our house is used to how we use it. And then you sell it, and you might have a family of, bunch of little kids. They've got dogs. They like it super cold. And now they're using the house differently right away. And that's when these older systems fail. That's what an inspector told me. So I kind of explained that to the buyers, and I say, it's up to you. It's not a huge expense, and why not?
So you are recommending, like, I thought sellers can provide the warranty as well, but if they say they're not, then when do you have that conversation with the buyer? Is this before you even make an offer? Do you say, do you want to purchase one? Or I just don't know when to have that conversation.
Yeah, so you have that conversation when you're submitting the offer because it's on the contract. However, if they opt to not have one and you have the inspection, and then either they decide, you know what, I'm going to buy it after all, or the seller counters and say, look, I'm not replacing this, but I'm willing to buy the home warranty for your client. You can always add it before closing. But you do have, the first time you have the conversation with them is before you write the offer. And my point is,
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But if they say no, that doesn't mean that they cannot add it.
They can add it at any time before the closing?
Yes.
Okay. And then Am I like, it's just that I'm not well versed on what these warranties, how much they cost, what they cover. I don't know anything about them. So I guess I just feel intimidated to even bring it up because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, so the contract is in .loop, and there's also a brochure in .loop.
Okay.
So that's where you would see it.
Okay.
And on the contract, it will tell you if it's a condo, it's this much. If it's a single family house, it's this much. If it's a duplex, if it's a triplex, if you're adding the washer and dryer, you add this much. If you're adding this, and then just kind of add it up.
Yeah, and Jenna, for something like that, I mean, that's a really easy reach out to our partner, Gina Legeza, and she can equip you with everything that you need to educate your clients and make sure that you understand it at a high level.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so when do you review the offer terms with your clients? I review them before we write the offer. We have that conversation when we're discussing strategy. Then they put it in writing on my terms of offer sheet. And then I write up the offer, I email it to them in .loop, and I summarize the terms in the body of the email. Once they receive it, you tell them, like, give me a call, and then you can discuss the different terms with them. When they say, by the way, I don't see that you gave me a home warranty. You'd have, they have the contract in front of them. You've got it opened up on your computer. You go to the section where it discusses home warranties and be like, okay, look on page 2, line number 180, whatever, and that way they can find it easily. So always when you're discussing a contract, specific terms on a contract, use the line numbers on the left side. But so you should have had, by the time you submit an offer, or by the time your client signs the offer, they should have been discussing the terms like 3 or 4 times with you. And believe me, you have no idea how many times people sign contracts without reading it. Like, it's really, and then they're mad at you. So just make sure that you have done each step and that you don't skip through it. Go ahead, Jenna.
Oh, I don't have anything.
Oh, sorry, your hand was up. I thought.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put it down.
That's okay. All right, so tips. Tips for writing an offer. Keep it as clean, as simple as possible. Anything that is convoluted, people are just gonna shy away from, especially if they have multiple offer situations. So clean and simple. Include all the information that you can add, such as the agent's information and the seller's name. When I receive offers and I see a bunch of blanks, like my name, my brokerage names, which is so easy to find, it communicates to me that the other agent is going to do the bare minimum. That's what it says. I just do the bare minimum. And I don't look forward to doing a deal with that person. I will if they're the only one, and I will try to make it work. But if there are multiple offers, I will tend to look favorably on the ones who put in all the details. So on the flip side of that, I want people to look at me through the offers that I present and say, wow, this person pays attention to detail. They definitely carry their end of the deal. I can expect a smooth transaction from this person. So just remember, people are going to judge you, especially the other agent, based on the offer that you write and how complete it is. And then make sure that the listing agent knows how to contact you. I received an offer last week from an agent who did not put her email or her phone number. It came through .loop. That was the only way I could contact her or do like a search. It was really annoying. So just make sure all your information is in there as well, not just theirs. All right. I'm not awesome with technology, but I hope you all know that all of your offers need to begin in command. Do not start your offers in .loop. So first you have to have your contacts in command, And then you go to the opportunities in command and you will follow the prompts on how you create a new opportunity, but start in command. Otherwise, if it's not in command, you don't get paid. And that's what we're here for. All right, any ahas or questions about writing an offer?
This is Shannon. The only thing I was gonna say is that it's been helpful for me is I have a couple, like my purchase agreements, I have a few different ones that have like my standard information just to save time in writing my offers. Especially when, you know, you love it when you do a showing and then an hour later the agent says, oh, we're accepting offers in like an hour and that's it. So I've done that. It's been really helpful. I don't use Outlook, I use DocuSign, but I think you could do it in both.
You can actually create your own template. So you can, you know, update, like you say, all your information is already in there, and just, create it.
Yeah, and I have some things that are always standard, like so many days or inspection you always require. So I'll have a whole bunch of different templates just to make life easier.
Yeah, these little life hacks, right, that we need sometimes, especially when we're out in showings all day long and we're like, how am I writing this offer today? But yes, having those kind of streamline the process, make it as easy and quick as possible for you is important.
I did have one question. Where in the purchase agreement do you put a note in regards to the point of sale? I mean, luckily I've never had to put an offer on a home that had a point of sale, but where in there does it notate that? Is it near?
It's not included in our actual purchase agreement. You have to put it on line 12, also included.
Okay.
So if you want the seller to deliver property point of sale compliant, it would be seller to deliver property point of sale compliant, or buyer to assume point of sale violations and escrow requirement of $3,500.
Okay. Yeah, I know exactly what I hate that line because it only gives you so many characters. So then you have to tweak it in envelopes. So.
Yes.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Just really quickly, I was typing and missed, where did she say the template where you can create extra templates? Where is that?
You can do it in DocuSign or Dotloop.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, presenting the offer. So now your buyer has signed all the documents. You receive the little alerts in your email that everything has been signed. Go through it and check everything. Do not submit an offer without looking at it. Part of that is that we make errors. We may have gone through this with our client, they have gone through it, and then I have done this more than once where I'm like, okay, perfect, everything is here, and I'm looking also, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's totally wrong. That has an extra 0. We didn't notice it, you know, like it's important. So just make sure you go through all the documents, that you have checked the MLS for instructions. Some agents do not use Dotloop. Some agents do not use DocuSign. Some of them want them in PDF. So just look at the instructions and follow them. Make sure that all of your documents are clearly labeled. For example, purchase agreement, 123 Main Street, RPD, 123 Main Street, you know, proof of funds for, you know, Jane Smith, whatever it is, label them. Put the documents in logical order. Usually I do the proof of funds first, and then I do the purchase agreement, and then everything else. Because people really want to know, what are you offering? And that's usually on the first page of the purchase agreement, most of the information. So, you know, put it logically. And then send everything to the listing agent or however they told you to send it, and email them a summary. You know, please accept my client's offer to purchase, blah, blah, blah. To summarize the term, we are offering this amount of money. It's conventional loan. We're doing an escalation clause, and just summarize it. And I always attach a PDF. And that you have a little box at the bottom, a dot loop, and it says you can attach a PDF, attach a PDF. Then once I've emailed that, I call the listing agent and I text the listing agent. And I will say, I just sent you an offer for 123 Main Street. Please confirm receipt. And then make sure that once you are in your loops and in your DocuSigns, that you keep them clean, that you have folders that are labeled, that whatever, you only have one version of each document, the previous versions, you archive them. And that's it. And then I send my buyer a text saying offer's been submitted. I'll keep you updated as I hear more. If I have not heard anything from the listing agent within a reasonable amount of time, it depends when I submit it. If I submit it at 9 o'clock in the morning, I should hear something that day. If it's the night before, I'll wait until like midway through the next morning and I'll just say, hey, we submitted an offer. When can we expect an answer? Any questions about presenting the offer or ahas? All right, so now you're the listing agent and you are receiving the offer.
Sorry, real quick, Sophie. I want to kind of hammer the point that we've come to a couple times. If you've done everything in the system correctly, from preparing the offer, writing the offer, communicating the offer to your clients, when you get to actually delivering the offer, I mean, it is, everything gets easier if you do the right groundwork up front. And
exactly,
that's simply my admonishment to all agents, that all problems, if you talk to people in homeopathic medicine, they'll tell you every problem in your body starts in your feet. Every problem in a contract typically starts with whether or not it was rushed, or you prepared correctly, or communicated everything in as detailed a way as possible. Or if you were, anybody who takes we'll figure it out when we get there problem is probably having a lot of conversations with myself or Andrew Gitzer.
Yes. And I used to teach, and I used to always tell my students, if you don't have the time to do it once, you certainly don't have the time to do it twice. So take a little bit of extra time to do it correctly the first time, and it'll save you a lot of time in the future. So yes, now we are the listing agent, we are receiving and reviewing the offer. So I receive an offer, I'm going to check that the offer is complete. That means that I have a proof of funds or pre-approval letter. Once all the documents are there, I will confirm receipt of the offer with the listing agent. If something is missing, I will confirm receipt and say, hey, by the way, I'm missing the pre-approval, or I'm missing the RPD, or, I noticed that your buyer didn't initial any of the pages, they just signed the last one. Whatever my notes are, I will put it in that email. Once that's done and I have a completed offer, you have to present it to your client immediately. I mean, as quickly as you can, based on what you're doing, what they're doing. And I create an executive summary. I don't just send them, tons of documents for them to pour through. I do, hey, this is the offer that we received. This is what they're offering. It's cash, it's conventional, same thing. Just the summary of the terms. If we have more than one offer, we actually have a spreadsheet with offer one, who it is, blah, blah, blah. And I just put all the different terms that we can compare. I'll say, what I think the strength of an offer is, what the weakness of an offer is, based on what is important to my client. Then you can also call the buyer's agent and get information. Just like I called the listing agent when I was preparing my offer, call the buyer's agent. Find out what's important to them. I usually try not to confirm receipt via email. I usually try to do it via the phone because, again, you're creating rapport with the other agent, which is very important, especially when deals get a little bit difficult. Having had that first really good conversation, pleasant conversation, goes a long way, but also you're understanding their client's motivation. And that's going to help you guide your clients into making counter offers that are likely to get accepted. So again, I deal a lot with investors. We're always trying to push and push and push and push, but you don't want to push so far that you break, right? So understanding those limits is super important. Call the lender to verify the pre-approval letter. Understand again the strength, of their offer. Wait a second. And then create an outline of the document when you call the sellers. So again, preparation goes a long way. So when you receive, review, and respond to an offer, first, reviewing the offer, make sure that you've got the proof of funds, that you know what the price is, if there are any seller concessions, who pays the home warranty, if the earnest money is sufficient, closing date, appliances. I would also look at the inspections. Again, if you are in a municipality that has point of sale inspections, has this been addressed? If it's not addressed, the buyer's agent might not know about it. They may not understand what the point of sale inspection is and what the options are. And so don't ignore that, because they will create an issue down the road and you want to address it at the beginning. And then again, like I said, how solid is the buyer and do they need the concessions if they're asking for any? Calling the buyer's agent, confirm receipt, thank them, discuss the term, find out what the deal breakers are for their clients. This is important. And then ask where they have flexibility. And I always say, hey, I have not even discussed this with my client, but kind of want to understand your offer beyond what's on paper. What are the deal breakers here? Where do they have flexibility? And just get them talking. Again, you don't know what you're going to find out. Once you've done that, you call your seller, you summarize the terms, ask them what they think, tell them what you learned from the lender and the buyer's agent, and ask them how they would like to proceed. I think that you should always have suggestions and also possible strategies if they're not ready to accept the offer as is. Maybe have some strategies that you can propose based on what you learned from the lender and from the buyer's agent. Again, the idea is to get your client to an offer that is acceptable to them. So, things to remember, the phone is your friend. A lot of people try to stay away from the phone. They want to text, they want to email. Don't give in to that. Call the other agent, get people on the phone. The information that you will find out is really invaluable. And like I said before, you also create rapport, which can be extremely beneficial once you start negotiating and renegotiating and trying to get the deal to a certain place. Another thing to remember is everything is always negotiable. Even when people say this is non-negotiable, this is our highest and best, this is a take it or leave it, those are words. Everything is negotiable. And you're more likely to get to a yes if you do the first thing, and that is call on the phone. Be creative in getting both sides to a yes. So again, to do that, you really have to understand both sides' motivations, what they want and what they're capable of doing. Obviously, if you know that the pre-approval is, this is really the max that they can do, and their pre-approval is 200, trying to get them to agree to 220 is just a waste of your time. So understanding that. But there are a lot of different ways to get people to a yes. But again, you need to know their motivation. Regardless of the number of other offers or lack thereof, you can always try to negotiate a better deal for your client. So I had a listing, and these are investors that I work with, they're flippers. And we were listed at, I think the price was 161, and immediately we get an offer of 166 with some concessions, a really, really strong offer. And I think my clients are just going to take it, and they're kind of sitting on it. And 2 days later, we have no other offers. And we're at 166 for a house that's listed at 161. And my clients say, we want 171. Of course, right? Like 5,000 over asking isn't enough. We want $10,000 over asking with just one offer. But because I had spoken to the buyer's agent and I'd spoken to a lender, I knew that this buyer had a lot of flexibility. And I also knew that the buyer thought that we were only going to repair, well, we all thought that we were only going to repair the garage because it was going to be point of sale compliant. Well, the city came back and said that they wanted a new garage. So I called the buyer's agent and I told them, look, my client wants 175. They're not going to go for anything less than 175. You know, he's furious. I'm like, look, the city's going to make them put on a new garage, and it's not, you know, it's going to be a much nicer house because of that. Brand new garage floor. That's $20,000 right there. He was like, no way. So I call him back a couple hours later. I'm like, look, their bottom is 171. New garage floor. They said, okay. We had said it was going to be point of sale compliant, but I knew that they only thought it was going to be fixed. And that was also part of the reason that they were going to pay what they were going to pay, because down the road, they were going to change the garage. And so I was able to get my clients to where they needed to be. And the other side was very happy. They were pre-approved to 200. She's super happy she's getting a new garage and a new garage floor, but I would never know that if I hadn't called the other agent. So do not commit your client to anything that they have not explicitly agreed to. When you're talking to the other agent, do not agree to things for your client. Say something like, I'm just brainstorming right now. I have no idea if my client's going to agree to this, but what if? And see what the other side says. And then they can go back to the client, you can go back to your client, and that's how you kind of like move closer together. And sometimes you have to do the math for the other agent when you're negotiating. We had a deal where the buyer wanted central AC installed. And my client said, okay, we'll do it, but we want an extra $4,000. And they're like, no, we don't want that. And so when we were negotiating and talking to the buyer's agent, we're just like, look, your client is not paying $4,000. Your client is putting 10% down. That central AC is costing your client $400 and like a couple bucks a month. So if she really, really wants a central AC, it's a $400 expense. So do the math for them. All right, so when you respond to offers, especially when you are new and you have to call the buyer's agent or the seller's agent, whatever it is, whichever side you're on, you know, don't be afraid to role play. Talk to somebody, practice if you need to, write it out, say it out loud, whatever that is before you get on the phone. Any questions about receiving or responding to an offer? Any ahas?
I'll add one. I really like the, don't be afraid to do the math for the other agent piece, because it can make a big difference. And then sometimes the way that they're seeing things or their math compared to the way that you are figuring it out, that's more conversation that you can have to come to a win-win. So thank you for that too.
Yeah, and it's when you have to think about it, and you think about the actual cost to someone, it helps in the negotiation if you've thought about like how, not just how you get your client to a yes, but how you get the other client to a yes. And sometimes the other agent won't think of that, right? So if you kind of make the argument as if you were talking, if like, as if their client is your client, then that helps them. And you know, that doesn't mean they're going to do it. That doesn't mean they're going to agree with you. They might just be like, no, it's still like a $4,000 expense they don't want to do, or the client might say no, but at least you've put forth, you know, the best argument that you can put forth. Where is my thing? Any other ahas, questions for this section? Okay. So I would like at least one person to answer or to share for each of these. I know that we don't always like that, but I think we learn so well from each other, and everybody who has shared today, I think has added a lot of value to this conversation. And I know that there are a lot more on this call. And so, you know, please share with us, because we would love to learn from you and what you're thinking and what your experiences are, or even what your questions are. How has your thinking changed today about writing and accepting offers? How has it shifted, even if it's a little bit?
All right, I'll speak because we don't want to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, I didn't get as much from this, but it reminded me of that. The first or second offer I ever wrote, I was feeling rather cocky and confident because it was a large home and it was all cash. And I'm like, this is an amazing offer. And I'm like, oh, a 3-week close, and assuming that the sellers would be ecstatic about such a short close. But just you're bringing up, reaching out to the listing agent and seeing what the seller's timeline is and what their hopes are is always really good, because it was something that I had initially had forgotten, going, oh shit, maybe they need 5 or 6 weeks. Maybe I don't need to put it in as a 3-week. They may not look at it as a bonus, where in our minds, like, that's awesome in some people's minds. So just a reminder of just following up with the agent and kind of getting the feedback is, I think, was my biggest moment I learned in the beginning.
And thank you for that. Yes. And you just remind me of something else, especially if you're in a multiple offer situation and you cannot get a hold of the listing agent and your client has some flexibility, you can leave the closing date open and say a seller can choose a closing date anytime between this date and that date. And then they can say, okay, so between September 1st and September 30th, we would like to close on the 20th of September. And that gives you a little bit of an edge too, without leaving it completely wide open. Again, if you cannot get a hold of the listing agent, because sometimes that does happen. Anybody else have something to add about how their thinking changed today about writing or accepting offers?
Yeah, I learned one thing. So actually, the preparing the offer, since I'm a new agent, since I never thought about I can call the listing agent to where the offers coming in, so that we can get some proper position to offer. I thought that that's kind of, I shouldn't do, but it's okay. Yeah,
It is. And you have to remember, just because it wouldn't be okay for you to answer the question if you're with the listing agent, doesn't mean it's not okay for you to ask the question.
Yeah.
It is their responsibility to say, I'm sorry, I can't share that. And they will say, you know, I can't share that. And be like, yeah, I know, but I had to ask. And they're not going to fault you for it.
Excuse me. I would just like to say that the main thing that I really got out of this, which I have been working on because I'm on the team, is the mindset as far as having your checklist, check off all the things you were talking about, you know, check the MLS, you know, all the different things. That is so important because you might miss something.
Mhm.
That's all.
So I submitted an offer. It was a multiple offer situation. I was in a rush. And I didn't hear back. And I know the other agent, she's works a lot in Cleveland Heights where I do. And I called her and she was just like, I never received your offer. And I'm like, looking on my computer, I'm looking at Dotloop. I'm like, yeah, it says right here, I sent it to you. Like, I'm looking at Dotloop right now. She's like, oh, I don't work in Dotloop. Didn't you see? It says, do not send your offer in Dotloop. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to send it right now. But just imagine I had not done that. I hadn't called her. Maybe I didn't know her, whatever the reason is. My client's offer would not have been accepted because I didn't submit it properly and the agent didn't get it, didn't know about it. We actually got that house, but he would not have gotten that house because I skipped a step. So yeah, it's super, super, super important. Whenever I'm tempted to just like, yeah, I'm really busy, I'm going to send these documents right now without checking them. I check them before, it's going to be fine. Something happens. I've actually sent the wrong offer to an agent because I did that. I just was going too quickly. So it's not that I tell you these things because I have a perfect system. I'm telling you to do these things because I have, you know, skip this step or skip that step and have had consequences. I mean, obviously not terrible consequences, but they could have been worse. So yeah, they're important. So how will your behaviors be different going forward? Like, what actions will you take? Or will all of you do the same things that you were doing yesterday? Anything be different? Nope, nobody's committing to any kind of change.
I hope that everyone's committing to getting that initial preparing the offer system. I gotta tell you guys, like, I am such a huge proponent of systems, and I find new opportunities every single day to add in a new system. And so, you know, if you ever do something twice, there's room for a system, and hopefully you're going to prepare more than 2 offers in the entirety of your career. And as Sophie indicated, you know, so many issues can be avoided with a strong system where, you know, everything happens the same way every time, and we still have to build redundancy into them. You know, like, oh, I send the offer and then I call and confirm the receipt of the offer, right? And you don't want that receipt over email. You don't want it back as a Dotloop note that comes with 15 other Dotloop notes that you then miss because you don't. And that way, every time it's a simple check off. And then when it doesn't, you know, look at that, two examples of where Sophie still got deals done despite, you know, something that otherwise would have just been ignored by the agent. So really encourage you, if you're not going to have a 15-point prep plan, have a 5-point prep plan. Have something that ensures that you are doing things as consistently as possible, because while the clients are different, the homes are different, the sellers are different, the buyers are different, the terms are different. There's only about 60 boxes that get filled in on a contract. And so if you have a strong understanding of what those are for each client, you can move and groove pretty quickly.
The other thing I want to say about systems with writing, submitting offers, accepting offers, is following up. I am shocked, even when I represent the sellers, sometimes, like, I received 3 offers on a property on Friday, and investment property, so it's not at the top of my clients' minds. And I have got to chase them on a daily basis to answer things. If you don't follow up with either the listing agent who received your offer or your client who needs to answer something, oftentimes things fall through the cracks. And, you know, deals are missed, offers are missed, and just kind of your business disappears. So following up on offers is super, super important. Don't just assume I submitted it, it's in their court. Definitely be sort of like that squeaky wheel without being a nag, until you get an answer that, yes, they've reviewed it. No, we have accepted another offer, or yes, they're considering it. If they say they're considering it, you know, and I'm like, did you receive any other offers? Let's say there were no other offers. Yeah, actually we did. I'm like, okay, is there anything that I need to know? And again, I don't know that my client would, you know, improve their offer at all, but is there anything that I need to know that would make the other offers more attractive than ours? And sometimes they will say, yeah, you know, like you had a long closing contingency. They wanted closer or quicker close. I'd be like, okay, let me see if I can make that better. And I'll call my client and be like, hey, they got other offers and this could make our offer better. So follow up on all of your offers, not just on your clients and your leads. Follow up on your offers. Okay, so the thing about systems, and I'm speaking from experience, I do have some systems that I've learned, but staying committed to them is hard for me. I'm not a systems person, but you know, I always remind myself, I'm like, okay, Sophie, do you want to write this offer or do you want to get this offer accepted? And that's how I get myself to go back and do all the steps, because I do like to rush. I'm a nervous person. I'm like, get it done, get it done. I got so many other things to do. And that's how I slow myself down. Do you want this offer accepted? Do it correctly. All right, so daily success system. I think you guys probably discussed this with others. Hold on, because all your faces are covering up what is written. All right, so daily success system, you should have at least 10 conversations every single day with leads. You should add 10 contacts every single day in your database. You should send 10 handwritten notes. I don't personally do that, but every single time I hear people who do, they have huge success. So I don't know why I don't do that. It's probably something we will add. We all have these little things that we're resistant to. I think that's one of mine. And also engage in social media. Oh my goodness, Maggie like drilled that into my head. I think it was last summer, because I'm not a social media person, and it actually does work. I have gotten business through social media. We definitely get a lot of mind share in social media. That's all I have to say. Give a shout out to Shannon for that one, because I would not be as good on social media without her, but definitely engage in social media. Make sure that you have scheduled appointments, that you are getting agreements signed. It doesn't matter how many people you speak to if you don't schedule any appointments. And it doesn't matter how many appointments you go on if you never get a document signed, meaning a listing agreement or an accepted offer. And then obviously it doesn't matter how many listings you get or how many offers you submit if you don't close anything. So all of those lead to closings, but you're not going to have any closings if you're not talking to anybody. So the number one thing you can do to grow your business is to talk to people. Cold call people, call people in your database, whatever, you know, hand out your business cards at the grocery store, wherever you go. You have people who say they have a standard that they have to hand out 10 business cards a day. Whatever that is, just get in front of people, talk to people. You know, a lot of people say, well, I don't have money for leads, I'm just getting started. You know, for sale by owners, for rent by owners, the people you know in your phone, asking them for referrals, asking them who they know, who's looking to move, to buy a house, to sell their house, all of those things. Just talk to people. The more people you talk to, the more your business will grow. It's just, that's it. It's a direct correlation. And this is something we have to tell you. If you are using a dialer or if you're cold calling people, if their phone number is on the do not call list, do not call them. You would be violating federal law if you contacted them. So do not call people who are on the do not call list. All right, so this is something to sort of center you before you make a call. And really tell yourself and feel, I engage every conversation in the spirit of contribution, and people are happy to be in relationship with me. So when you call people, offer information, even if you're cold calling, you know, just be like, hey, I'm calling. As you know, the market's been really great. People's properties values have gone up. And I am just calling to see if you are looking to move, or if maybe you are interested in knowing what your home might be worth in today's market. I'm happy to send you a free market report, or a free valuation of your properties, probably is what they would understand. And if they say, yeah, I'd love, you know, you can do it while you're on the phone with them, ask them for their email address. I'll send you a short little description of your local market, and start the conversation that way. You know, you don't always have to ask for something. You can offer. And what can you offer? So the 10 people a day. If you wait until the morning to decide who you're going to call, your day is going to carry you along. You're going to get emails, phone calls, text messages, and the likelihood that you're going to call 10 people is slim to none. So get in the habit of preparing your call list the night before. Who are the 10 people you're going to call? So before the end of the day, if you're going to do for sale by owner, get on Zillow. This is where they are very helpful, because you can do FSBOs. See which FSBOs come up, get the phone number, their name, their address, put it on a piece of paper. And in the morning, whenever you have a few minutes, you call another person until you've called all of them throughout the day. And I would recommend a time block for that. Usually they say to do it from 9 to 11, time block 2 hours a day, but that's a lot to get started. So if you've never called and you're not comfortable with calling, tell yourself this week, I'm calling 3 people every single day, no exceptions. Next week, you're going to do 5 people, no exceptions, and build up to your 10 people a day. And then if you really, really, really want to crank up your business, go to 15 people a day. You know, I have clients who call 100 people a day. They're investors, and they find their properties to flip that way. 100 people a day. So 15 is not that much. You just have to get your call list the night before and just do it. What Nike says, just get it done. And the faster you're done, you can move on to something else. I heard when I first got licensed, Kobe Socher was saying that when he got started, everybody hates calling, by the way. Nobody loves calling. So you're not special. We all hate it, but we do it because that's where the business is. And he would say, okay, an average commission check is this amount of money. And I know that if I make 50 phone calls, I usually tend to get a closing out of 50 phone calls. And so he would say, I'm on call number 37 out of 50. I'm almost there. Let me get to the 50th call. And I know in the next few months, I'm going to get, boom, that bag of cash because I made these 50 calls. And it was like the countdown to 50. It was like the countdown to his payday. And so do that. Just know, you know, let's say it's 50, just say, okay, if I do 10 calls a day, that means 1 week I get to that bag of cash. But if I decide to really hustle and I do 25 calls a day, it's every 2 days I get that bag of cash. So whatever motivates you. So daily practices, in addition to your calls, role play, 20 minutes a day, cold calling people, negotiating offers, talking to other agents, role play all of it. And then real play, you can't role play yourself into success. You also have to call actual people. So do that for 45 minutes a day. Whatever the minutes are, you decide, just do whatever you say you're going to do it every single day, no excuses. And not because you want to, because that's what's going to make you successful. Update your contacts and follow up. So once you've called people in your database or whatever, take 30 minutes every single day to update your files, write notes. I spoke to so-and-so today, sent them a CMA, they're thinking about selling in the spring. And then put them on a drip campaign, that you contact them every so often, even if it's just once every other week, once a month, send them a text. Hey, blah, blah, blah. It's Sophie with Keller Williams. I know you're not looking to sell till the spring, but is there anything I can help you with right now? And then if they decide to move in November, you're not waiting till the spring to call them, be like, well, I sold my house in December. So just make sure you stay in touch with them, but update your contacts, update your command or whatever CRM you're using. And super important, celebrate your successes. Like we share with each other when we have an appointment, when we got a listing signed, when we submit an offer, when we get an accepted offer, when we close, and we cheer each other on, like on our team, it's important to celebrate our successes. What do you do to celebrate your success? And it doesn't have to be on a team. It can be something, that you do for yourself. Like my first year, I wanted to close, my first full year, I wanted to close 50 properties. So I had a sheet with like 50 boxes on it. And whenever I had a property, I would put a star. And then once I capped, my star got to change to a gold star. Because again, I was a teacher. And when you get 100%, a kid got 100% on their test, you would put a little gold star. So once we cap, we get 100% of our commission. So I would give myself a gold star, and that was like my way to celebrate my success. And then I would see throughout the year, my page would just like fill up with all these stars. And I had way more gold stars than the other ones. And that was awesome. So, think about how you want to celebrate your successes. Maybe share if you have others. And they don't have to be like a trip, but they can be. Yeah, my gold stars.
I love it. I love it. I think that, there's countless books and studies and everything where the prizing yourself, right? Finding something that, you will not necessarily deny yourself, but that you get to have whenever you accomplish a goal.